Me is David Darnell, my often intrepid co-host here on Tuesdays. David, welcome to the show tonight. Good to see you.
Thank you. Welcome to the first day of winter,
It is the first
Mr.
day of
L.
winter, and if you are a worshiper of solstices, then I guess what is this? The winter solstice or something like that, right? It should be the
Mm-hmm.
longest night of the year.
Yes, which means the days will start getting longer tomorrow, which means there's hope for humanity. Of course, not for elves, because I'm sure elves live for the short days of winter.
As soon as we're done with Christmas, we start again on the next Christmas. Plus, we have a lot of paperwork and IRS filings that we have to do and
Yeah, I've
regulations.
always kind of wondered what you guys do during the summer. I mean, do you go to Antarctica or?
Well, I don't. Where do we summer? That's a good question. I think we pretty much just work through the summer, filling out forms. That's what's required, and and
Give tax.
also and also trying to make sure that we can friend source or resource or near source all of our products, since we can't count on them coming from China anymore, as we know.
Yeah, that's a long sleigh ride.
It's a long sleigh ride, especially when you have to deal with zero COVID crackdowns, which they say they've stopped, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That remains to be seen. Well, in the news front here, we've got kind of I want to say it's humorous. I got to laugh, but I want to cry because there used to be a great military that could kick everyone's ass and be counted on to defend us and defend freedom at any time, anywhere. And now, apparently, a whistleblower has come out saying that all ranks of a New Mexico-based squadron visibly wear what's called bad dragon paraphernalia. I guess bad dragon paraphernalia is kinky sex toy merchandise. And so the Air Force is pledging, they haven't done it yet, they are pledging, because they're on this really, on top of this, they're pledging to crack down on airmen wearing kinky sex toy merchandise. And they're going after folks of all ranks. It's a drone flying squadron. So I guess they don't make a lot of public appearances, but you would think they would still don the uniform but instead, this is fantasy-themed bag dragon sex toys reportedly are popular with the furry kink community, are now the company's non-sexually explicit merchandise that is also popular with the 3rd Special Operations Squadron, historically known as the Dragons. I guess it fits thematically with what they're doing, but there's an attorney who's involved with this, who shared the whistleblower's written statements and corroborated the communications. And this attorney is involved with some of their COVID-19 vaccine mandate challenges, which, I'm all for that. But I don't know if this is a protest or if this is what they think is just like the best way to dress. But the Air Force has said that they're seriously considering any allegations of inappropriate unit climate and culture. And they will address the matter, quote, appropriately, unquote. We are committed to ensuring climate and culture throughout the AFSOC that ensures every airman's safety and that all airmen are treated with dignity and respect. As a reminder, you're only authorized to wear 3 SOS-approved patches, and severe repercussions are in store for anyone caught wearing anything referring to bad dragon.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hope this isn't a sign of where the military is or is going. I know that there's been funny stuff that's happened in the past that's actually humorous and related to morale within the unit, but we just hear too many of these stories where the military is actually at the top level promoting stuff like this and saying, well, this is good. This is good for our
this is healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. This makes for a healthy and effective military. So if we need to go to furry costumes, since none of you people are out there in the field, you're merely sitting in a room with a controller in your hand, then maybe we can run that up the chain of command and see if we can just go ahead and get you in furries.
Yeah, and in the end, one day, all of these guys are going to have to actually fight and kill people, and they're going to have to be scary enough to opponents that those opponents around the world won't even dare try doing this. And then they see stories like this and think maybe they aren't all that.
I take
So
it the Bad Dragon paraphernalia, jewelry, accessory line is not particularly scary. I mean, I find dragons scary, and a bad dragon is probably even scarier than, let's say, a good dragon, though I don't believe I've read any good dragon stories.
well, and it shows a service member in one of the pictures here wearing a bad dragon lanyard during sexual harassment training, which is ironic. I know you can't even make this stuff up. And of course, sexual harassment training is going to make sure that no matter what, our opposition is scared of us. And I know it's essential and they have to do it, and it's like an HR thing, but sometimes it just seems like it's a corporation and not an entity whose job it is to break things and destroy military units.
Yeah. Warriors, soldiers are warriors, and warriors are meant to do violence. I mean, that's how war is fought. And I, I sure hope our newest generation of recruits is okay with that at some point in time if it comes down to it. But stories like this kind of make you wonder.
It does. Well, how about if we get to some of the more serious news out there? We've had a lot happening in the Twitter front here, and it's been really interesting because,
Yeah.
I think Twitter just got 18 times more interesting in recent weeks. And I think didn't you point out that it is the case right now that they've seen increases in the number of people. I forget what the metric was, but
pretty much all of them, pretty much use, new accounts, daily active users. It's all through the roof, and of course I contend that that's what Musk is engaged in, is marketing. And I think he's doing a masterful job at it. I think whatever light this sheds on the darkness, the dark corners of the incestuous relationship between private business, particularly media, be that digital media or other forms of media, and we know it's there as well. I think it's either an intended or unintended consequence. But I think ultimately, the guy spent $44 billion on a company, and he needs to make that sucker pay. And I think he's just doing a masterful job of marketing. And I mean, people are, flocking to Twitter to see what this thing's all about. And this thing is about things that I guess we thought we knew. We pretty sure we knew that were going on, but now we have not just a smoking gun, but we've got a minigun or a Gatling gun of smoking guns here. I mean, there's just piles of shrapnel everywhere, with the government's prints all over Twitter, and of course, we know the same thing's happening at Instagram and Facebook and every place else.
Yeah, the latest stuff is, I think yesterday was a file dump about what really happened with Hunter Biden stuff. What they really did, it got so adverse that even Twitter's censorship chief was perplexed by the FBI's demands for censoring all this stuff that was going out. And it's because it was just them saying, believe us, it's all fake. It's just a Russian story that's been planted. The laptop doesn't exist. And then they are like, well, okay, but you're telling us that we can't even report or let people disclose this and then mark it as something. And no, you have to stop it. And so I think we have, whenever the Democrats started talking about people interfering with elections and collusion, everything that they said is what they were doing times 10, and this deep state that was acting on their behalf, against the sitting president at the time, specifically to get rid of the sitting president, which some people might be fine with that, but I really think that this is a danger to our republic. It's like these are people that I think are essentially committing a very obvious form of treason against the United States. Because when in the past would that not have been the definition of treason, to have an investigative bureau out there going and pressuring entities to lie about something or to suppress something and lie to those entities so that the candidate of their choice could win a presidential election over the person who was in office? When's that happen?
Well, it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that there exists a deep state, and that deep state is non-elected and not accountable to either the people or the people that we elect to oversee them, and including in the case of the FBI and the DOJ and probably some other actors as well, DHS. They're not even accountable to their chief executive officer, which is the president of the United States, and in fact are running operations against the president of the United States. And it kind of makes you wonder who's really calling the shots. Is it Congress and the judiciary and the executive branch calling the shots in the United States of America, or is it the deep state?
Yeah, sort of a shadow government that isn't elected by the people, but apparently knows better than the people what is in their best interest, or is willing to manipulate voters into producing the outcome that they want. And then afterwards, escaping accountability, which I don't know if that's going to happen. I think there's a chance they might be held accountable, but then there are people who are rooting for this stuff to happen. One of them is Vice President Kamala Harris. Vice President Giggles said that she wants to force tech companies to work with the government, which is
why? You don't have to force them; they're already working with the government, Kamala.
I know that was a jaw dropper. They're already doing it, but now she is concerned. Well, obviously because of what's happened with Twitter, that one of them is falling out of line and doing whatever they want, and they need to be brought back into line. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. She said, so what I would say about any social media is this: I fully expect and would require that leaders in that sector cooperate and work with us who are concerned about national security, concerned about upholding and protecting our democracy, to do everything in their power to ensure that there is not a manipulation that is allowed or overlooked that is done with the intention of upending the security of our democracy and our nation. She just described everything they did in 2020. So yeah. I don't think she's arguing against what they did in 2020. She's arguing for what they did in 2020 because of her definition of all of this.
Yeah, she is, and I don't know. I can't take anything she says seriously. I mean, I don't know who is writing her scripts. But she's not doing, whoever's writing her scripts is not doing her any favors, not doing the administration any favors, certainly not doing the citizens of the United States any favors. The fact is that government, with or without the White House, well, obviously without the White House's knowledge in pre-2020, 2020 and before, is engaging in the kind of stuff that she, thinks that we should be engaging in. And it's clear to me that if you have a government agency that is in fact restricting the free political speech of citizens for no other reason than you don't want to hear it, that's just a First Amendment violation. I mean, that's, I don't even think you need to have a panel to discuss that.
I'm not even sure you need a court hearing. You just need the court to be presented like, here's what happened. Yep. Yeah. Unconstitutional. Out of here.
Yeah. I think if you had a chief executive officer, i.e. a president, in the White House, whose duty it is to execute the executive branch, I think they would just, call everybody up and say, hey, you're all fired. And we're gonna start over. You've all broken the law. You're all fired. I'm going to refer you to the DOJ, and I'm going to urge that the DOJ investigate you. And if you've been found to break the law, which I believe that you have, you should be prosecuted. But I don't know, man. It just doesn't seem like we live in that country anymore, Kevin. You know what I mean? Ever since the whoever that was with the FBI that stood in front of the cameras and said, we didn't find anything wrong with what Hillary Clinton did, so we're not going to,
James
look any
Comey.
further.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean? If that were me, I'd be in federal prison for a good long time.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and so this is Adam Schiff, Congressman Schiffhead, as I like to call him. He is actually, he went on something called CNN State of the Union, which is hilarious that they even call it that. But he expressed and made what they would describe here as barely veiled threats to Elon Musk for trying to restore free speech on Twitter. He said, because he's a lame duck, he's going to be in the minority shortly, and deprived of all this power that he has abused over recent years, which we'll talk about in a minute. And he said, there's a big problem right now with social media companies and their failure to moderate content and the explosion of hate on Twitter, the banning of journalists on Twitter. God forbid. Then he suggested ominously that Twitter and social media companies may not continue to enjoy immunity from responsibility and liability, which they were more than happy to extend to them as long as they complied with the wishes of corrupt Democrat leaders who thought that they could manipulate the public using these entities. So now that Adam Schiff can go on and say whatever he wants on Twitter, short of actually trying to dox and target people by revealing their location, so Antifa can go and find them and take pictures of them and threaten their family. Short of that, Adam Schiff can say whatever he wants, but that is unacceptable to him, that anyone could say anything they want to or back in response to Adam Schiffhead.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the left wants it one way. They're perfectly happy as long as there's only one point of view, and that's theirs. And clearly, I think we all know on our side. I mean, I don't hear a lot, with the exception of Twitter. I don't hear a lot of journalists and leftist check marks, bitching about having their tweets removed and having their account restricted on either Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. I mean, the left is they've taken over this thing, and we know this relationship that that Elon Musk has. What's what I'm looking for? Exposed at Twitter between Twitter 1.0 before Musk bought it, and the FBI, the DOJ, the DHS, and the Office of what's that person? The Office of somebody, it's intelligence office.
Oh yeah, the one that was going to make sure that we all the Office of Disinformation. Remember that one? They were going to found that disinformation. Yeah. Well,
I think they have founded that, and I think they just I think they sheep dipped it, and they just went into the private sector. I mean, how many I'm not sure what the number of former FBI employees it was at Twitter pre-Musk, but it was so many that they had their own Slack channel. So how many former, quote, supposedly former FBI personnel, DHS and CIA and whoever personnel are working at Facebook and Instagram and all these other, YouTube and Google? I mean, they have everything they say they want. They have had everything they say they want, and Musk just said, no, we're not going to do that here. And now they're crying like babies. Democracy is going to die because a couple of journalists got their hands slapped on Twitter, and they can't. I don't know what they did, but whatever it is they did before they got their account restricted, they can't do it now, and apparently that's the end of the free world.
Well, and the FBI is even going after some of its own personnel. In one case, they claimed a military veteran who's an analyst for the FBI. They suspended him because they said that he had conspiratorial views about January 6th. And He's suing them. I think that's great. Go into court, prove your case, because all these things they like to do through the media just to target people and retaliate against them. I like to see them be dragged into a court of law where I think you got at least an even chance of perhaps sussing out what really happened. And these guys, I know they don't care if they lie and get caught, but I think at some point the consequences are starting to pile on. And one of the things that a lot of folks might have picked up in the news recently is that Elon Musk posted to Twitter a poll. It was, should I step down as CEO of Twitter? Because he's been spending a lot of time with this, and he's obviously completely turned the tables on these guys, and he's just releasing stuff that the Democrats thought would never get released,
right,
and would never become public domain. They thought, well, someone might start issuing subpoenas, demand the DOJ go and enforce the law, then we don't do that, and then it takes forever to get to the truth. And he's like, nope, just dump it out there, and everybody's going to hear every day just what the FBI was doing to work with Twitter to stop the Hunter Biden story, and what they were doing to target specific individuals, to blacklist them and shadow ban them, which they did do.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you can imagine,
and it was like it went 57% yes, step down, 42% no, and then it turns out the next day he goes, well, guess what? I was defeated by bots who aren't real.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. The guy's good at what he does. He's run a couple of these polls, and he's using them to identify bots. He's using them for customer ID, right? I mean, if you vote no, then you're probably a good customer, and we should market to you. If you voted yes, and then you probably have some different ideas of what Twitter should be. But yeah, the guy, I mean, he's the master troll. And it's fitting that he is the master troll because he owns the whole damn company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has no shareholders that he needs to answer to, no one he's responsible to. He can quite literally do whatever the hell that he wants with Twitter. And I'm guessing there's no more FBI involvement in Twitter. I'm just guessing. I don't know that for a fact. I've gotten to the point now, Kevin, where I just don't believe anything on its face anymore. And, so I just, I use the internet to look at pictures of cats, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes I wonder if the cats have been, digitally altered. So.
Well, and I think that he was one step ahead of these guys. He knew this was going to happen with this poll. And so now, even though he said he'd comply with this, he's not going to comply with bots. And he said, we got to he goes, let's clean up and then run this poll again. Which
and there'll be more bots.
There'll probably be more bots.
And he'll get more bots, and he'll clean up more bots, and he'll keep doing this, and the bots will keep falling for it. And I mean, he's really good at it. But one thing I want to say before we moved on from this was, if this much material was left at Twitter by the FBI and the DOJ and the DHS and everybody, imagine what it is that they scrubbed before Musk had the keys.
It must have been 10 times worse than anything we're seeing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of 10 times worse than anything we're seeing, the January 6th Commission, they did their press conference in the last 24 hours, or not, they did their hearing, which was not a hearing. They didn't listen. And hearings that you don't listen to anybody, you just spout propaganda and allow no cross-examination. Those aren't hearings, but they went
sound
ahead.
Bites.
Yes,
it's a soundbite. It's a soundbite circus, is what it is.
It was a show, but
yeah,
it's fascinating because they went and said we are doing criminal referrals, and the media dutifully reported that they're doing all these criminal referrals, which is criminal referrals by the January 6th Commission. Against Trump and others. Just one problem. Alan Dershowitz points out that that is specifically forbidden in the United States Constitution. They're called bills of attainder. They were something that was forbidden in the Constitution because they anticipated that, like what was done in the House of Commons, where they would go and they would just condemn someone and claim that someone was a criminal by legislative edict, for which they had no powers to do under the Constitution, that they wouldn't permit that. But so their referral to the Department of Justice, you and I could do it. Our referral would be just as meaningful as theirs and have just as much force of law as theirs, which is to say no force of law. It's a suggestion. And he said it's outright unconstitutional. Article 1 limits the power of Congress through legislative actions, period. Now, I know Democrats don't care about the Constitution, but they also can't make the Constitution something that it isn't just for this. And I think that's beautiful. That is ultimately the greatest defeat that they could want, that we could want to have for them. It was a circus trial. It was. And now they're referring fellow members of Congress, such as Kevin McCarthy and Jim Jordan and others, who kind of led the charge on going after and not complying with the January 6th committee, which was supposed to go in and drag them in front of that committee and force them to testify as if they were, subjects of the committee, that they are subservient to this committee. And they said, no, take a hike. And now they're referring these guys to the ethics committee within the House, which is hilarious because I think that's going to go exactly nowhere as well.
Yeah, especially after January.
Yeah, when power switches hands, and it should come as no surprise that in the middle of all this stuff that's going on, another thing emerged, which is that they now have a hold of the subpoenas that were used by Democrats, such as Adam Schiffhead, to via the Department of Justice, that were going and spying on the Republicans controlled the House of Representatives in 2018, and Congressman Nunes was the chair of that committee, and they were investigating what was going on with all of this Russia collusion stuff. And they were finding left and right just stuff that said that this is complete garbage, that they were actually spying on the president and they had no business doing it whatsoever. Well, turns out that the Department of Justice was not only spying on his committee, which is actually, again, another violation of the Constitution. The executive branch doesn't have the power to investigate legislative committees that are investigating the executive branch. They don't. And so this has been revealed, but they were also looking for blackmail. The DOJ was looking for blackmail material to blackmail Nunes and other members of the committee. And now we have the subpoenas proving this. So when somebody says, well, we should not spend any time investigating what happened in the past, so just move on and get back to business of the American people, I'm like, no, clean this crap up. This cannot continue. The people who did this while there was a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. You've got to find them. They've got to be rooted out. And they have got to go to jail if that's at all possible based on what's found. And all of this stuff is spewing out. Now, here's one big disappointing thing that that the Gateway Pundit's reporting. And, Gateway Pundit, we'll see. Sometimes they're okay. Sometimes I don't know. But they're saying that former Speaker Paul Ryan actually knew the DOJ was spying on the Nunes committee, which had Kash Patel by the way, leading that effort. He was the top investigator for that committee at the time. He later went on to be an assistant to the defense secretary, and he's probably one of the most honest, class, straightforward, smart guys that I hope he ends up being attorney general or something like that in the future, because that guy dots his I's and crosses his T's and knows what he's doing. And they were spying on him.
Yeah. Well, I think we're back to where we started the conversation with Twitter. I mean, the deep state needs to go. I mean, this is more evidence of the deep state. This is more evidence that, there's a government within government that's trying to do government in, I guess, trying to form government or shape government in its own image, I guess. And it's just, as far as we're concerned out here, or at least I'm concerned on the outside, is it leaves me with very little trust in the function of really any part of government. And I feel like I'm a disloyal American for helping the government to even exist.
Certainly, we don't want to be enablers of the stuff that this government has been doing to its own people. And it maybe redeeming about all this is the fact that we do have some judges that are willing to step up and at least make sure that there's some judicial oversight of this. And so
Yes.
there's a piece of good news. So
Yeah.
Measure 114 here in Oregon, that I believe it's the judge in Harney County,
Mm-hmm.
has extended the suspension of the implementation of Measure 114 with regard to high capacity magazines. He's blocked it indefinitely. It is blocked. This is something the Democrats thought they could get through anyway. He's blocked it indefinitely. We'll see if it, if the courts above him actually will uphold this. I don't trust those courts very much because they've been stacked by the nation's least popular governor, Kate Brown.
Right.
But at least somebody's stepping forward and saying, look, this is the wrong thing. We're not going to allow this to proceed until there's a hearing determining whether or not this is constitutional, even and legal under Oregon law.
Right. Well, I feel the same way about the higher courts in this state that you do, but I to give them credit, they did fail to hear an appeal for the injunction that Harney County judge initially imposed. So maybe there is a little hope. Maybe they know how far they can go, and maybe this is just a bridge too far for them. And we've got some good judges. Good, seems like we have a damn good Supreme Court. I mean, I never thought in my lifetime I would see Roe v. Wade vacated, but it was, and of course, just recently, the Supreme Court, was it the Supreme Court that issued a stay on the removal of Title 42?
Yep, that's the next item on the list here. So the Supreme Court temporarily halts the end of Title 42, which was the effort put into place by the Trump administration to rapidly return all the migrants streaming across the border, or at least give the government the power to do that in the interest of making sure that they don't flood the country with people who have COVID and stuff like that, which a lower court struck it down. And the Supreme Court has halted the end of that. And we know that this is actually going to result in a massive tidal wave of people who are literally waiting right on the other side of the border to cross. Michael Yon, of course, is down there right now reporting on this, as several other news outlets. The mainstream media is ignoring it, and Joe Biden's pretending like everything's normal. And literally, there are towns run by Democrats who are in absolute terror of what's going to happen, that their cities are going to be overrun by what used to be just a small number of people, and now it's going to be thousands and thousands a day coming across it, every single city across along that border. But the Supreme Court said, nope, we're going to actually hear this case.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad there's, some judicial relief. I mean, that was the original intent, was having the three branches of government to have checks and balances. And it's it feels good to, as just a plain old nobody American citizen, to have a little bit of balance and a little bit of checking going on, because it just seems like there's a concerted effort on the other side of where good and decent people stand, that is just hell bent on destroying the whole country. Any possible way it can. It's like it's a shotgun approach, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's every avenue that you can possibly crash the United States government, cause chaos within our society. They're just full steam ahead, full court press on all of it. And I'll tell you what, at times for me, I don't know about you, Kevin, I don't know what about the people listening out there, but at times for me, man, it just seems like it's all too much sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It's overwhelming because it does seem like a broad spectrum bum rush on every institution and the rule of law and everything that actually has made this country capable of guaranteeing freedom for its citizens, and they're determined to undermine it and to do so as quickly as possible. And just through sheer incompetence, the feds deserve to be held accountable for this. Apparently, they lost track of 150,000 migrants due to a policy that the Biden administration put forward called no processing. Somebody comes across the border and because there's too many that came across that day, they've decided that they are not going to process them in any way, shape, or form.
We're not able to get it done, so let's just stop doing it.
And let's let them in anyway. Yeah. That would work great, at the airports for TSA. There's too many people coming in for this flight. Just go on ahead. If you have a bomb, whatever. We don't have time for that. They don't really care. And literally what they did is they handed a piece of paper to people without identifying who the people were whatsoever. No fingerprints. They could be a hardened criminal that was deported 10 times. And they just let them back in. And the piece of paper said, go find somebody in ICE, the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Go find them. Okay. Thank you for that piece of paper suggesting that I do something that I have no interest in doing. Boom, gone. And they don't know who they are or where they are, and they could be anywhere. And this is what has been brought to you by this government that apparently is furious that they're being held accountable for anything.
Yeah, it's unconscionable, and again, it just seems to be part of that multi-spectrum bum rush, as you call it, which is a good way to describe it. The invasion at the border, which is going to wreak havoc throughout our cities. We've already, reported on the fact, or went through the news reports that a nonprofit of sorts tracked the migrant flow to all 435, I guess there's more now, but congressional districts throughout the United States. And so they're being systematically systematically distributed throughout the country by an organized effort to integrate illegal aliens into every city and town across America, I guess.
And led by a party who openly admits that the last census they manipulated the last census to make sure that all of these folks helped them gain seats in certain parts of the country, or at least not lose seats by flooding those parts of the country with folks that are not legally present in the country. So if you feel manipulated, you're being manipulated by these folks.
Yes.
And they're doing it in a way, the frog in the frying pan style. But look, not to be outdone, Oregon back here on planet Oregon, there are our government's busy trying to figure out how to make sure that you won't have affordable transportation or energy. This one really stood out today. It is Oregon bans sale of new gas-powered cars after 2035. There was something all up and down the West Coast. California said they're going to be carbon
13 years
neutral, and so in 13 years, Oregon is going to make it so no new gas-powered passenger vehicles may be sold in 2035. Now, you and I both know that the minute they pass this, they just move that date up and up. Was this the result of someone specifically passing a law that was debated by the state legislature and signed by the governor, with people being able to participate in open hearings?
No, I don't think the legislature's been in session, Kevin.
They're not only not in session, but apparently they don't even think this is important enough to hold a hearing about, because it was quote, Oregon policymakers who actually, I thought that's not what a bureaucrat is. I thought a bureaucrat is a policy implementer, or at times they can make rules. And this is what they did. They created the Advanced Clean Car 2 rules, which and they simply declared it by edict as a result of a special meeting of the Oregon Environmental Quality Commission that took place Monday afternoon, the week before Christmas, when everybody's paying attention to what the government's doing to destroy their lives. And they said that they will kindly allow some hybrid vehicles to exist. Well, yeah, right. For now, maybe. But they want everybody to be forced to purchase electric vehicles in that year.
Man, that'll make my fleet a lot more valuable.
Well, and today wasn't
used cars are going to go through the roof, Kevin.
That's true.
There's not enough electricity. There's not enough grid. There's not enough infrastructure in the state of Oregon to power any significant amount of electric cars. I'm not even sure we have the generation left to power a significant number of electric cars. I mean, the math just doesn't work.
They don't even have a reliable distribution system for doing this to all the points that need to be done. They don't. And they said they're investigating right now. There was another report last week saying that they're looking into grid reliability. Well, maybe they should look into that before they make everybody rely on it. What do you think? Would that be a smart way to do it, or no? No, they're not doing that. They're going to make everybody rely upon it. I think that it's turning out that gas-powered vehicles are a form of freedom where they just can't control you. They can't tell you what you can and can't do. And they will do that with the electric grid.
Yeah. Well, they'll do it with the car, Kevin. All the cars are connected to the internet. Press a button, boom, your car don't work.
Yep.
You drove too many miles today.
Well, and you have too much white privilege to drive today. These are non-white privilege driving days, Mr. Darnell. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, we saw what you said on Twitter, and
that's right.
And here's the other thing. Is they're going to probably take this out on Tesla. So they'll do their best, to ban Teslas because they've got to hurt Elon Musk somehow because he's ruining the whole game for them. It's just an absolute. It's a circus.
And not unionized enough either. But here's an interesting story. Toyota president suggests majority support keeping gas vehicles. And this is the company that invented the hybrid vehicle, in effect. The Toyota Prius. And he's like, but you know what? I think they actually like the gas vehicles. That's what we've just figured out.
Yeah.
That's somebody who has to listen to customers. I think I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that hybrid, the hybrid idea is not a bad idea. If you do run out of electricity, you got a little, gas motor in there, you can still get to where you're going. I honestly, I still don't know. I've only seen one, but I still don't know what the hell happens to a Tesla when you run out of juice on the side of the freeway, a couple miles south of, Myrtle Creek on I-5. What do you do?
I don't know. That's a good question. I wonder what AAA or somebody does if they have a way to charge up the vehicle. That's a very good question.
I don't believe that they do. I mean, you'd have to have a fairly significant investment in a charging. I mean, you'd have to have a large generator. I don't know. I'm an electrician, so I look at the Tesla charging installations, and those are huge. Yeah, those are 1,000 to 1,200. Well, they might even be 1,200 amps of 480 volts.
Yeah,
1,200 amps is enough to run a 50 to 60, 100,000 square foot building, and that's what's required for the 8 chargers that Tesla has, scattered throughout the state. And so, when you do run out of electricity, I mean, maybe the Tesla won't let you run out. Maybe it makes you turn around and go back to the charging station like a Roomba. robotic vacuum cleaner, but I don't know what happens to people that run out of juice in an all electric car. So, I mean, I think the Toyota guy's got a pretty good point that, at the very least, that hybrid is a pretty good solution.
I think energy choice is going to be one of the energy freedom, energy choice is going to be one of the great rallying cries of the coming couple of years as we find out just how bad it is to be forced into no choices. But unfortunately, the 2 U.S. senators from the state of Oregon don't believe in this. And Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, and they are sounding the alarm on something that they refer to it as a fossil gas pipeline expansion. They do not, repeat, they do not want to have a what they call a fossil gas pipeline to be expanded, which is natural gas, which we know actually is the cleanest burning fuel that they have. And they said, well, we're just not going to allow people to have enough of this because in order to, quote, reach net zero emissions economy by 2050, President Biden pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% by 2030 below 2005 levels. And they said this project would emit 2.3 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions until at least 2052. So they basically want to make it so that all these hundreds of thousands of people in Oregon who depend on natural gas, of which the United States is the Saudi Arabia. We have the most of anybody in the world.
It's plentiful and cheap and clean.
So plentiful, cheap, and clean isn't good enough for these guys because they are such extremists. They are preventing this pipeline from actually being expanded to meet existing demand, for which keeps people's homes warm, heats their water, and cooks their food. These people that are in favor of doing what these people, what is happening to our energy infrastructure, they are the extremists. And you know where they're taking their cues from? And I'm just going to put a link here. People can go read it. They're taking it from Europe. Europe has just implemented, it's a deal that is being implemented European-wide for what they call a social climate fund to support energy transition. It is going to be a climate credit fund where each individual person will have to actually now pay the government for each emission of carbon dioxide that they are responsible for. So when you thought, okay, in the past, the airlines were just measuring how much carbon dioxide they emitted, and that was an interesting statistic, and you could voluntarily buy carbon credits. Nope. All this measuring stuff that they're doing is designed to make you pay for it directly. So they're going to penalize people for doing things like flying places, driving their cars, heating their homes. They're going to do that in Europe. How long will a boneheaded idea take to get to a place like Oregon that loves boneheaded ideas?
Well, it should be born here. I mean, we are the petri dish of bonehead ideas.
We need to lead in stupidity. We need to lead in stupidity.
They bubble up from a marble cauldron in Salem.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's like a witch's brew of dumb ideas that that emits itself nonstop from that very location. Well, here's something. So we kind of get close to the end of our show here. I wanted everyone to hear about this. There's 2 stories that came from President Brandon this today. One is that apparently he lied directly through his spokes idiot, the person who I can't even read a teleprompter correctly and is unable to answer questions, but nevertheless emit spokes idiot lies. That Joe Biden, who promised he was going to do an annual physical exam, which presidents do, is not going to do one before the end of the year, which he promised to do. I wonder why that is.
Well, he's too busy, Kevin.
He's too busy going on vacation, right?
Or sleeping.
Yeah. Or sleeping or going on vacation, or making poorly read speeches from teleprompters that express to people even more idiotic support for idiotic ideas. And here is the latest one of his idiotic ideas. He claims that he is going to reduce homelessness or houselessness. Sorry, I got to get the term right. He has a homelessness proposal. He's going to reduce it by 25% by 2025, a mere 2 years from now.
Really?
Yeah. And he says that his approach would rely on, guess what? Federal
Money.
funding. Federal
Money.
funding. Yep. Because money
Taxpayer
fixes
money.
everything, right? Money's just
Taxpayer
magic.
money. Yeah. Or in his administration's case, and many administrations' case, not actual taxpayer money, but taxpayer debt.
Yes. Money they don't have that they're going to print, and then they're going to send to places that don't spend it wisely on problems they don't know how to solve. So the problem can get worse. And 2 years from now, they can say how much money they spent making the problem worse. They're very good at that.
And some vendors will get rich, and they will return that money in the form of campaign contributions to the Democrats who printed the money and indebted me and you and gave them the money.
Yeah, it's super highly predictable. And actually, this is brought to you by the administration that we just talked about, is letting untold numbers of people come across the border, some of which they actually identify and tell us how many of those are. Then they have people that they don't identify, and those people just come across. And then they have the people that they call the gotaways, which outnumber the people that they actually encounter, because the gotaways don't want to be caught because they are drug mules. They're bringing fentanyl and meth into the country, plummeting the price and supplying it to cities, which is driving the homelessness. So they're going to have to spend an infinite amount of money to fail to reduce homelessness by 25%, as they provide the single greatest incentive to homelessness, which is people doing meth in tents.
Well, I wonder if they are successful in at least getting some people off the streets by printing and spending money that they don't have. I wonder if it'll hurt the drug market, or will. I mean, people. So if you put somebody in a house they're not paying for that somebody else paid for, are they going to stop doing drugs? Probably not.
No, because the house doesn't solve the drug problem, nor does giving, as they're doing in some states, they're giving them gift coupons, saying, here's a gift coupon if you stop doing drugs. There you go. And addicts are not known for responding well to soft incentives like coupons.
No. Very few people get clean and sober from a soft landing.
And penny pitching isn't their strong suit, unless the coupon is to get cheaper meth, which they're already helping them do by bringing as much of it across the border as possible from the drug cartels who control our border, not the United States government.
Well, I mean, drug addicts, generate quite a bit of cash flow.
They do.
They do. And especially heroin addicts, because heroin's not cheap, and you're not going to go without. So you're going to come up with a few $100 every day somehow, and usually that's selling other people's stuff. But
it might be the one of the largest businesses in the city of Portland now that I think about it. If they actually went out and if they had the Federal Reserve do its econometrics forecasts and measurements of inputs and outputs, if they could figure out how to do that, they would probably say, okay, we got this many homeless, we got this much meth, here's the price, we know what the market price is, so therefore we can measure supply and demand off of that.
Well, if they did that, maybe they could tax the drug dealers and get them to pay for the unhouselessnessing of them. And it could be easier on a drug dealer. I mean, if you get everybody in a bunch of little apartments, or get everybody in a bunch of little houses someplace, I mean, it's much more efficient for the drug dealers to go through and sell drugs and have to wander from tent to tent to tent to Foster Avenue to, so it would be greener because they wouldn't have to drive as far.
Yeah, it would save carbon dioxide emissions for them to do that. Very smart. Actually, I never really thought of that one.
Yeah, and you could kind of do the same thing with the drug dealers to get them to pay the tax. You could just say, here's your coupon. If you do get caught, you're not going to jail.
That's right. They'll treat tax evasion the same way they treat gun law evasion now. It's like, oh, you need that gun in order to protect your stack of cash, which you're going to give us taxes for which we will not prosecute you if you don't pay. It all works so well. They've got it
Right.
all thunk out, and that's the brilliance of the government at work for you. Well, I think we really hit all the treetops here tonight. I did want to make one mention. Last night we had uh, on uh, uh, from the trying to remember the name of the group. It is the Parents Education Freedom for Oregon Choice Amendment movement. And I promised last night that once they sent us the information about this movie screening they're going to do with someone who used to be Miss Virginia and then actually led the effort to get school choice approved through the federal government so that this would actually free it up so it could be done in the states. This is back in, I think, 2004. There's a movie about this story that's going to be coming out, and that is screening is going to take place on the 28th of January in Hillsboro. And I just posted a link for anybody who wants to go and sign up to watch that. I promised Donna Kreitzberg, who was on last night, that we would do that. And there are people fighting the good fight, even in Oregon. We got to encourage them. We got to support them. And then we actually got to be relentless, because the other side, as we said, they're relentless. They're looking for
They are. Yeah.
to tear down the society.
Constant pressure applied constantly.
Yep. Isn't that the Marxist maxim? Yeah, I think you mentioned it before. So, well, it's been great being on here tonight with you, David. This is the last show I think I'm expected to be on before Christmas. So thus I've donned the garb here of Kevin the Elf in the Portland office.
Merry Christmas to you, Kevin.
Merry Christmas, David. And Merry Christmas to all of you. We should be back tomorrow night with Sonny Danforth and Don Anderson. And then on Friday, I think you and Sonny are due to back cleanup on the 23rd as we wind out the week of wacky stuff that Democrats are trying to get away with, while you are doing stuff like paying attention to Christmas and family. We'll keep you informed. Please share the show with everyone you can, and definitely make the most of the Christmas holiday, because that's what reminds us why this is why we do what we do. It's important, and we'll keep it up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.